Welcome back. President Trump's temporary travel ban is now in the hands of the Supreme Court. Justices could decide in days whether to lift a stay on the president's revised executive order to halt travel from 6 mostly Muslim countries. The White House insists it's necessary and constitutional.
Last night, we asked the Supreme Court to hear this important case and are confident that the president's executive order is well within his lawful authority to keep the nation safe and protect our communities from terrorism. The president's not required to admit people from countries that sponsor or shelter terrorism.
All right, Dana, what do you make of this?
Well, I've been saying for a while that I thought that the White House should do this because especially after Neil Gorsuch got sat on the Supreme Court and was confirmed that this issue is too important to leave to, how long it would usually take for, I'm not crying, I have an eye drop.
You're crying.
Sorry, it's like it's spilling out.
Oh, no.
Because the Fourth Circuit just came out and said no. The Ninth Circuit had said no. And so now this is the time, I think, for the White House to ask for expedited review by the Supreme Court, since now there are 9 justices, and just get some clarity. And whatever the decision is, then move on from there. If they have to revise and rewrite what they want to do so that it's constitutional, great. And if they don't, then you can say the supreme law of the land has said that this is constitutional and they can go forward and implement.
Yeah, I think it's perfect timing, it's appropriate, and this is what they were supposed to do, Greg.
I think the important thing here is that we're having a conversation about something that's really important. The conversation goes bad if you start calling people xenophobic or Islamophobic, because that tells everyone that you're living in the past, that a past where these apocalyptic threats didn't exist. So when you're actually worried about Islamic terrorism, you're somehow racist. You're basically a barnacle on society. You're living off us. We no longer should be let a fabricated guilt over a lie that somehow we are flawed to prevent us from protecting ourselves from an imminent apocalyptic threat. So in a sense, we have to divorce ourselves from liberal guilt and have no problem with saying no terrorists allowed, no Islamists allowed.
All right, so Jesse, what do you think? The timing and also the ban?
I think it's good timing. I think the anti-Trump media narrative for the first 100 days is going to totally flip in the next 200 days. They said this travel ban was going to be held up in the courts. Looks like it's probably going to be a 5-4 decision in the Supreme Court. They said the president couldn't get any legislation through Congress on pace, health care reform, and tax cuts. They also said that he was colluding with Russia. Now all these new investigations and subpoenas making the Obama spying scandal that much more important. So, there are checks and balances with these things, and but eventually the Constitution wins. And according to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Congress has the power to regulate immigration. And in 52, they passed a law empowering the president to deny entry into the U.S. any class of citizens considered to be detrimental to the interests of the United States.
Well, within the authority of the President of the United States, Juan, so now what?
Well, I was just so fascinated, Jesse. That was unbelievable.
Stalling?
I was stunned. I mean, I didn't know anybody thought that the Trump administration was on pace with repeal and replace or tax reform. Really?
I think you'll get those things done by the midterms.
I'm glad for you. I just don't think the rest of the world is on that page. And guess
I'm
what,
glad for
Greg?
you, because you're going to get more money in your pocket, too.
No, Greg, there's a big difference between being somehow inhibited by earned guilt or something, liberal guilt, and history, the reality of history, and being learning from mistakes you've made in the past.
We have.
The judge in the Ninth Circuit there said that the Trump order drips with religious intolerance, animus, and discrimination.
I know, isn't that silly?
Oh,
Drips.
yeah, gee. So
Silly.
I think
sounds like sound legal arguments.
Well,
Drips.
religious discrimination.
But that's
a
not-
sound legal
that's not-
argument
that's
in the
not-
United States.
So when you fight, see, what you're doing is you're actually conflating. You're conflating Islamic terror with Islam because you're saying if you want to ban terrorism, that's somehow bigger.
No, that's not what I'm doing, because
that's exactly
what Donald Trump does when he says here are countries with Muslim majorities.
Why did they embrace him in Saudi Arabia? 50 Islamic countries, they embraced him.
With statues and posters.
They're fighting. More Muslims are killed by Islamic terror.
Fine, but I'm just telling you, in the United States, we do not discriminate against anybody.
It's not discrimination not to want to have terrorists.
It's not discrimination.
You are paralyzed by liberal guilt.
Let me just tell you, the most likely outcome right now, since the court has stopped hearing oral arguments for the season, is that this gets held over and decided in September. I'm not sure that makes anybody happy.
I don't think so.
You think they're going to do something?
I think they'll do
now?
it sooner, because I think that it's the interest of national security, and that the president needs this, that the nation actually needs an answer on this, whether it goes for or against the president, so they can clarify it, not just for Americans, but also for those traveling from those countries.
They should just call it a tax.
Yeah.
That's how they got Obamacare through.
That's my joke.
I think they're going to reconcile.
I want to explain that to Juan.